Week 17 Fantasy Football Takeaways. Rookies finish on a high note. The final week of the NFL regular season is the most difficult to project, partly because each team's objective can change during the course of the game. In every other week, to quote Herm Edwards, you play to win the game. In Week 17, it's often more important to keep players rested and healthy heading into the playoffs. For fantasy owners who are still playing their championship games, or getting in one last full week of daily fantasy, the key was getting solid performances from the top players who were active on Sunday. The Pittsburgh Steelers sat starting quarterback Ben Roethlisberger and running back Le'Veon Bell against the winless Cleveland Browns. Entered Juju Smith-Schuster. The rookie wide receiver capped a marvelous season with a dominating performance. He caught 9 of his 10 targets from backup QB Landry Jones for 143 yards and a touchdown. And for good measure, he also took a kickoff 96 yards to the house in the third quarter. In point-per-reception formats, Smith-Schuster topped all wide receivers with 29.3 fantasy points, and led everyone with 35.3 if you count his kickoff return TD. Other star players who came through for their fantasy owners: Alvin Kamara, one of the top 2 candidates for Rookie of the Year, contributed in all facets of the game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He ran for a touchdown, caught 6 passes for 84 yards and returned the kickoff 106 yards for a score. Note to fantasy commissioners: if your league doesn't count return touchdowns for individual players, make sure you update your settings for next season. Kareem Hunt. The other top Roy candidate, Hunt wasn't expected to play much, if at all, with the Kansas City Chiefs' playoff position secure. He touched the ball once, a 35-yard touchdown run, and that was it. It was also enough to give Hunt the NFL rushing title over Todd Gurley, who didn't play in Week 17. The big disappointment for fantasy owners who figured Hunt wouldn't play much: backup Akeem Hunt quickly gave way to third-stringer Anthony Sherman, who had a rushing TD and 3 catches for 21 yards. Dion Lewis. Just as the Steelers had several regulars out, Lewis was just about the only running back left on the New England Patriots roster. He had a season-high 26 carries for 93 yards and a touchdown. And with Rex Burkhead and James White inactive, Lewis caught a season-high 6 passes for 40 yards and another score. Tom Brady played most of the game and was solid, not spectacular. He threw for 190 yards, none of them to Rob Gronkowski, and 2 scores. Matthew Stafford and Golden Tate. In a game that didn't have any playoff implications, Stafford completed 20 of his 29 attempts for 323 yards and 3 touchdowns. Tate caught 7 of those passes for 104 yards, including in a 71-yard score. And in perhaps the most creative play of the day, Tate and Stafford connected for a 2-point conversion. Although not in the way one might expect. Phillip Rivers and Keenan Allen. Even though the Los Angeles Chargers didn't quite make the playoffs, the deadly combo of Rivers and Allen gave it their best shot. Rivers threw for more yards in Week 17 than any other quarterback, 387, and connected for 3 touchdown strikes, while Allen caught 9 passes for 133 yards and a score. Early exits. A fantasy owner's biggest fear is having a key player injured early in a game. That was the case in Week 17 with Buffalo Bills running back LeSean McCoy. With an encouraging matchup against the Miami Dolphins, McCoy went down with an ankle injury and finished with 11 carries for 10 yards, plus 2 receptions for 22 yards. And the Dolphins lost 2 of their top offensive performers when running back Kenyon Drake and wide receiver Jarvis Landry were ejected in a major brawl. At least it occurred in the fourth quarter, after Drake had already racked up 90 total yards and Landry had caught 9 passes for 92 yards and a touchdown. Looking ahead to 2018. Perhaps the most interesting question to ponder over the offseason is the fantasy value of San Francisco 49ers quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo. Finally getting a chance to start when C.J. Beathard was injured, Garoppolo closed the season with 5 consecutive wins in his 5 starts. He threw for 292 yards and 2 touchdowns against the NFC West champion Los Angeles Rams in Week 17. With a full off-season in Kyle Shanahan's system and the return of top wideout Pierre Garcon, could Jimmy G be a top 5 fantasy quarterback next season? We know Brady and Aaron Rodgers will be up there. Drew Brees and Russell Wilson, most likely. But who else? Carson Wentz? It'll make for a fun debate.